I want to do everything I can to get my bones strong. Are we almost all magnesium deficient?
They're not even measuring the true magnesium. They're measuring a magnesium deficient population, and everybody's low.
If I am not taking Epsom salt baths on a regular basis or magnesium, that my heart goes poop, 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 poop. What's going on here?
Magnesium comes in and relaxes that heart muscle. Instead of having a ratio of 1 part magnesium to 1 part calcium, let's say, we have 10 times the calcium in our diet now than we do magnesium.
Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever been human or struggled with any physical ailment at all, then do we have the Magnesium Miracle show for you. Today I'll be talking with Dr. Carolyn Dean, the undisputed queen of magnesium and the runaway best-selling author of one of the most important books for modern health, The Magnesium Miracle. And that's just what I want to talk with her about today, about the missing link to total health and why we need it more today than ever. So welcome back to the show, Carolyn. Are you ready to shine?
Oh, I sure am, Michael. You are an inspiration. It's so good to see you again.
It's so good to see you again, and a mighty aloha.
Ha.
So before we dive right into things, are we almost all magnesium deficient?
Yes, I would say so. I mean, studies say maybe 70, 80%, but they're not even measuring the true magnesium. The magnesium in the serum is only like 4% of the total body magnesium. So they're not measuring anything useful. And doctors even got to the point where they say, well, this doesn't make any sense. And they do not even put magnesium on an electrolyte panel. So magnesium, which makes your heart beat properly, is not even measured when you're having a heart rhythm problem. It's just unbelievable. But actually, Michael, I think this is new to you. We're doing studies. Our first one is out of Purdue, where we proved that our magnesium, which you and Jessica know, our magnesium REMAG, is at the picometer size.
There.
Very good. Thank you. It's a picometer size. It's a stabilized ion. And when you shoot a laser through that bottle of REMAG, the laser doesn't bounce off anything that's material. So
what does that mean?
It means that there's nothing there of a material, solid nature. It's all dissolved ions at the picometer size. I didn't call them nanometers because nanotechnology has such a bad image these days. But anyway, so this study at Purdue, they used this machine to see what the solid particle amount was in our product. And they did it once. They didn't find anything. They said, well, that can't, because they taste this stuff. It tastes very strong because it's 60,000 parts per million of magnesium. And they tested it again, nothing there. And they tested it a third time because they couldn't believe that we had achieved a stabilized ion of a mineral. And what that means, Michael, is that this ion of magnesium is so tiny, it'll just dive right into the cell. And what that means to people like myself, who I was very magnesium deficient, but when I took any type of magnesium, I would get the flushing out through the intestines laxative effect. So I was doomed, If a doctor tells a patient, well, you're magnesium deficient, you have to take magnesium, and they get diarrhea, they'll take it once and that's it. So with the REMAG, a chemist and I worked on this formula where it is stabilized, enters into the the cells, and you can take as much as you need to solve all your magnesium deficiency problems, which, as you know from reading my Magnesium Miracle book, there's at least 65 known health conditions that could be magnesium deficiency. Doctors don't recognize magnesium deficiency, so they treat those diseases as if they need drugs. So you not only have the disease entity, you have magnesium deficiency, and then you start to get all kinds of drug side effects.
All right, a couple more things, then we're going to dive into some of the specific conditions that we can help people with. But one of the ones that comes up that's all the rage today, for good reason, is telomeres. So tell me about telomeres and magnesium.
Well, telomeres, they're what people are saying control our aging. It's like a shoelace with that waxed end of it, and the wax falls off and the shoelace unravels. And what I wrote in my Magnesium Miracle book, the last edition, 2017, is magnesium actually helps bind up the end of the telomeres so they won't unravel. And the study that showed that, it was an animal study. Hopefully they'll do more studies, but I stay with magnesium for anti-aging, because I know there are telomere products out there, but you see, unless you start with magnesium and you go off into other esoteric products, you miss the boat, because I didn't say at the beginning, but magnesium is necessary for 80% of known metabolic function and 1,000 enzyme processes. It's the most active mineral in the body. The next is zinc at about 170. So 1,000 compared to 170. So we've got a grounding in magnesium that is absolutely necessary for anything. Any disease you mention, I'll be able to say, yep, start with magnesium.
All right. Before we do that, one more question, and then I'm going to have you say, start with magnesium, start with magnesium, start with magnesium. And that question is mitochondria.
Oh my gosh, I love mitochondria. Mitochondria are actually a bacterial form that came into humans and then transitioned themselves into this. So that's where, when you put genetic material from organisms into the body's going to do something with it. With mitochondria, I just love them. There's 1,000 to 2,000 in every cell of our body.
Yeah.
And it is in the mitochondria. I think its main function, I love to think its main function is making energy in the Krebs cycle. Mm-hmm. And I already said that 6 of the 8 steps in the Krebs cycle make ATP. 6 of the 8 steps require magnesium to make the ATP. Mitochondria are awesome. They're my favorite organelle in the body. And what they do is they run the Krebs cycle that makes ATP energy. And in 6 of the 8 steps, I already said that, 6 of the 8 steps require magnesium to make ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So that's where our energy comes from, the mitochondria. Thank you very much.
And mitochondria love their magnesium.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's ask 4 different questions based on this one thing. So let's take them one piece at a time. Blood serum. In other words, most of magnesium is not. It's in the cells. It's in the bones. It's in our teeth. It's not in the blood. And yet they're testing in the blood. So when you go, well, I asked my doctor, we ran a test and I'm good on magnesium. It ain't so.
It ain't so. Exactly. And actually, another part of the first study that we did was to compare ionized magnesium testing with serum testing.
Yeah.
And we showed that ionized magnesium testing is far superior. And that's what allopathic medicine has to move to if they're going to make any attempt to help people with magnesium deficiency.
Thank you. And then the second question is why, and it might be two parts. Why isn't it on a panel to test electrolytes? And why don't doctors? Because now since we've spoken, there's probably, I don't know, it could be a gross exaggeration, 1,000 more studies. Magnesium is one of the most studied things out there. And yet doctors aren't doing anything about it. Why is that?
Well, what happened over the years is because they just used the serum magnesium and it always looked okay. Now, we can't say it looks normal. It just looks average. To the average population, people in this certain spectrum, they say, oh, well, this is, and they call it normal, and it isn't normal. It's just average.
The barefoot running world, and they would use cadavers to make the anatomy diagrams. There is natural versus normal. A natural foot you find like in a indigenous person living on the islands. Somebody with beautiful toe spread, a nice strong foot. That's natural. Normal is the big toe pushed in bunion by modern shoes, and that's what you see in anatomy is normal, but it ain't natural.
Exactly. So if, as you asked me in the beginning, if 70 to 80% of the population is magnesium deficient, they're measuring a magnesium deficient population and everybody's low. So it's skewed down. And when I first started looking at magnesium, the range was like 4.2 to 6.5. And a couple of years later, the range was 3.5 to 6.2. So they dropped the range down as the population got more and more magnesium deficient. And so they accept these numbers. And then when they run the magnesium serum tests in the hospital, you have a heart attack, you have a atrial fibrillation, they run the numbers and you're, 3.6. And they say, well, you're normal. You're at the bottom end of a population who's magnesium deficient, and they say you're normal. So, the other aspect of ignoring magnesium deficiency and the blood test is that the heart requires so much magnesium, it will pull it out of the blood, it'll pull it out of the muscles and the bones and everything. But because the heart wants the blood to always be available with some magnesium, it will keep the blood levels at a static amount so it can always draw on them in an emergency. So your blood magnesium is always going to look okay unless you're on death's door. And I've had thousands and thousands and thousands of patients and now customers saying that, oh, well, they said my serum magnesium level was normal, but when I took magnesium, my blood test got better and all my symptoms went away. Now, nobody's doing that study except, eventually I'll get to be doing all those studies. But, okay, so that's the answer to, your second question.
And okay, so that covers most of it. I kind of conglomerized them there. So yeah. I want to dive into how important it is for our health. Then I want to look at different conditions and how we can help conditions and even how much we take. But before we do that, I mentioned that we're fairly woo-woo on this show. We see a spiritual significance to everything. And so I'm curious, A, the spiritual meaning behind magnesium, and B, the spiritual significance to all of us being depleted and Mama Earth, the soil, being depleted of magnesium as well.
Right. Well, what's very interesting is over time, people would tell me, I do energy medicine, and of course I trained in acupuncture and homeopathy. They are energy medicine, a lot of machines out, balancing your energy, so many things that people are doing. And countless people tell me, until I started taking your Remag, my various energy medicine tools were not working. So what I deduced from that is that minerals are your life force, and especially magnesium. I mean, magnesium makes your energy molecules in your body. The Krebs cycle in the mitochondria, 6 of the 8 steps of the Krebs cycle require magnesium. So if you're trying to move energy with your Qigong or your mind or your acupuncture, and you don't have any energy molecules to move, then you're not going to feel much. But if you have your magnesium and your other electrolytes, I also find that potassium is hugely important. And it's been avoided because, sidebar here, the FDA said that supplements could not have more than 99 milligrams per dose. And the body requires 4,700 milligrams of potassium a day. So what are you going to do? Take, 199 milligram potassium pills. So anyway, I got around that just with some little math equations. And I have a potassium product now where a dose is a quarter teaspoon. So if people take a teaspoon, they're getting 400 milligrams, but that's 4 doses.
And how many bananas is that?
Oh, that's like 100 bananas.
Oh my God.
No, it isn't really, but I get away from prescribing bananas because of the whole yeast overgrowth business and diabetes and prediabetes. So I did have to create the potassium stabilized ion potassium product. It's called Pico Potassium.
And I think I have an armada here of products, and I'm looking because we love your products, and we've used them now for a decade, way before this show, and I don't have that one here. Okay.
Okay. Jessica, get online.
All right, let's talk about the heart, because I know if I am not taking Epsom salt baths on a regular basis or magnesium, that my heart goes boop, 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 boop. And if I take it, it's boop, boom, boop, boom, boop, boom, boop, boom. What's going on here?
Well, it's the electrical conductivity of the heart depends on electrolytes. That's why they're called electrolytes. And if you don't have enough magnesium, the calcium, which is its, evil twin, calcium builds up in the heart muscles, and calcium causes contraction. And magnesium comes in and relaxes that heart muscle. So they work together, contract to squeeze the blood out and relax to allow more blood to come in. So if you don't have enough magnesium to cause the relaxing, you're just going to get squeeze. And that's your heart rhythm disturbance, and it can get into angina and even a heart attack. I mean, athletes who have sudden onset heart attack or, fatalities after a big run, they are suffering from sweat loss, magnesium deficiency.
Interesting, because it makes me think, because I train my body. I don't typically run with any fluids, but I am continuously making sure my levels are good beforehand. And I'm guessing, so that's like the straw that broke the camel's back is that one last workout. They were well deficient. It's not just sweating from one event. They were well deficient, and they finished themselves off. Right.
Or, they carbohydrate and sugar load without, taking enough hydration. For hydration, I actually recommend people put sea salt in the water.
Love it.
Every bit of water I drink has sea salt.
My apologies. You just got me very excited on sea salt. Can you... So we have demonized several things, and one thing we haven't demonized. I want to talk about calcium in a minute, but we have demonized all salt. Are all salts equal, and what can you tell us about sea salt?
Well, the salt that has caused problems is the table salt, sodium chloride. So sodium is one of the 72 or so minerals you can find in a good sea salt. And sea salt has become, kind of the new sexy, not even supplement, but sort of sexy food. So there are a lot of sea salts on the market. If they are pure white, I think they've been processed and they don't have minerals in them to the extent that something like the pink Himalayan salt can have, or the coppery orange Hawaiian sea salt, or the gray sea salts of Celtic sea salts. So you have to choose a sea salt that has some color to it. And what I do is I tell people to take your body weight in pounds, divide that in half, and drink that many ounces of water a day. And in every liter, put a quarter teaspoon of sea salt. And what people say, because that's our first recommendation, we don't just dive right into our formulas. People say just with hydration and sea salt, they feel better. Because what happens? The minerals will dive into the cells as fast as they're able to, pull water in behind them. So people stop getting edema. They stop getting this bladder fullness in the middle of the night because the water is being processed in the cells. It's not just going through you like a tube.
I can hear so many people behind me saying, but I'm told to stay away from salt for my blood pressure. I'm on blood pressure medication, not for me.
Yeah, I know. It's very sad because, okay, let's look at it this way.
Yeah.
Your doctor will also say about your blood pressure to don't drink so much water. They will say that. They will dehydrate you. They will squish the water out of your body and your blood vessels to try to decrease your blood pressure. Less blood fluid in the blood vessels, less blood pressure. I mean, they're acting like our body is, a piece of plumbing, and we're not. So they dehydrate you. You don't get your water. You get all kinds of dehydration symptoms, and you don't have the water that's supposed to pull your minerals into your cells. And these days, if you're on filtered water, distilled water, everything's filtered. It's reverse osmosis water, distilled water, no minerals. So that's why you have to add the minerals, because they're supposed to have come from, the mountains and the runoff in the spring, the ice cascades down and scrapes the rocks, and then the minerals from the rocks get into the water and come to the floodplains where you're supposed to have your farmland. Well, we cut that all out. We diverted the rivers away from the floodplains because all that nice flat land is where we want to live. So we dammed up the water. Then we have to put the water through filtration processes and chlorine and fluorides. We've messed up big time. So in order to get those minerals back, we have to use sea salt.
Thank you. So let's go from there to something that hasn't been demonized, although now in some movies recently, I've actually seen some sort of a shift, particularly among the kids talking in movies. You say the evil twin calcium. What is going on here? And this one, I must admit, confuses me, because years ago I got tested as, you're not old enough, but if you were, we'll call you osteo something. And I've broken
osteopenia. Yes, go ahead. And all your accidents.
So I've broken a lot of bones, and I'm like, all right, I want to do everything I can to get my bones strong. And the answer is not more calcium. So help me out. Help everyone out here.
Right. Okay. Many layers and levels to that. Let's start with, a millennia ago, where humans, they gravitated toward the oceans. They lived near the ocean so they could get, fish and whatever else from the ocean. Seawater has 3 times the magnesium as it does calcium. So anything from the sea will give you lots of good magnesium.
Yeah.
And, you get your sea salt there. They would dry the water off, have their sea salt. So they were getting magnesium and sea salt and not that much calcium. Calcium from fish bones maybe. But then somehow over the millennia, people got into dairy farming, a lot of high calcium dairy products got fed into our diet. We fortify foods with calcium. We ignore magnesium because doctors ignored it, so everybody else ignores it. So we've built ourselves up to the point, instead of having a ratio of 1 part magnesium to 1 part calcium, let's say, we have 10 times the calcium in our diet now than we do magnesium. And magnesium has been farmed out of the soil. Calcium to a certain extent, but not so much. And certainly dairy products are high in calcium. When I eat like a couple of cups of yogurt 2 days in a row, I start getting my heart palpitations back because it pushes out my magnesium. That's how absorbable calcium is from dairy. So we've got that in the diet, much more calcium than magnesium. And then we look at the RDAs of calcium. In America, they're like 1,200 to 1,500 milligrams. And what's the RDA of magnesium set at? 350 to 400. So that, whoever's designing the RDAs doesn't have a clue. Now, in the UK and the World Health Organization, they say the RDA of calcium should be 600 to 700 milligrams. That I agree with. So I tell people, look at your diet, do the online data collectors. There's one called chronometer.com, CRONOMETER.com. You can type in your food diet and find out how much calcium you're getting on average. If you're getting 600 in your diet, good job. If you're not, then I do have a calcium product. It's called Recalcia. So when you take a Recalcia, the 300 milligrams is going to be 300 milligrams into your cells. When you take a calcium supplement, your liver will only get 4% absorption. The rest of that calcium in the supplement will precipitate in your arteries, start causing plaque, causing precipitation in soft tissues, causing breast tissue calcification, which is often misdiagnosed as breast cancer. Mm-hmm. You'll get heel spurs, kidney stones, gallstones, all kinds of tissue calcification. Some people who in the anti-aging world say that aging is equal to calcification in the soft tissues. So you want to avoid that. All the creaky neck stuff that people have. Did I just hear something? All that stuff is, calcification. So we've got diet against us. We've got supplements against us. We've got too high in RDA. And then when you bring in the magnesium picture, you absolutely need magnesium to model the bones, restructure the bones, make sure that they're supple instead of brittle. What happened when they started using the drugs for osteoporosis, they just forced people to take the drug and a lot of calcium. and they made a lot of brittle bones.
Very good. So let's go from that. Well, was there anything, you said there were multiple pieces. Were there any other pieces to the bones, or how we then, yeah, that's the question. So you take me, I'm still an extremely strong athlete, was not diagnosed, but would have been diagnosed had I been older with osteopenia, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Right.
And I'm going, how do I then boost my calcium? And it seems like this would be a very long process, or not boost my calcium, strengthen my bones. How do I do this and not go into panic? And how quickly can I do this?
Right. Okay. One interesting thing about bones and their strength is when the astronauts went up the first time into space without gravity, they all came back with osteopenia and osteoporosis. So the most important thing on your bones is gravity and weight training. I walk and I walk with a 3-pound weight, and I transfer it back and forth so that I'm always putting weight on my muscles and my bones. It's weight on the bones. It's magnesium that helps the calcium actually be deposited in the bones. Magnesium kind of directs the calcium to the bones, as does vitamin K2. What I realized with the whole attack on our immune systems is that vitamin D is very important. And I had to get into the vitamin D world because you cannot activate vitamin D unless you have enough magnesium. Magnesium is necessary in half a dozen steps of the vitamin D activation process. And what I found out maybe a decade ago, when people went crazy on high dose vitamin D, doctors were prescribing 50,000 units, and it was synthetic for one thing. But because there was so much vitamin D in the body, it pulled all the magnesium out of storage in order to activate the vitamin D, causing people to redevelop their magnesium deficiency symptoms. And I found this out from patients and customers that, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I've got migraines and I've got my heart palpitations and this and that. I thought my magnesium was working. What's wrong? And when I would ask them questions, what have you done lately? They were on high dose vitamin D, which stripped them of their magnesium. So all these, vitamin D, calcium, magnesium, vitamin K2 are all necessary for proper bone formation, but they won't work if you're lying flat in a bed. What happens, when you've had your injuries and you've been immobile, your muscles just, kind of atrophy. The way to stay healthy is to keep yourself healthy. And you know that, Michael. You and Jessica, that's your philosophy too. And it's just that I came to the point with me being so magnesium deficient, writing the book on magnesium deficiency, finding out I was a magnesium deficiency queen, and realizing that our minerals are the structural building blocks of our bodies, and we're not getting enough. Just before before COVID in the fall of 2019, I started working with a company called Grassroots Health. They're doing clinical research on a variety of nutrients instead of just researching one at a time. So they were working on vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids. And actually, Dr. Joseph Mercola told them to approach me about magnesium because it works with vitamin D. So I realized from my own test and tests of my customers that everybody is low in vitamin D and low in omega-3 fatty acids. And I had been saying to people, well, watch out for your vitamin D because it's going to steal your magnesium. So I was telling people just to take 1 to 2,000 international units. The RDA is 400. way too low. But when you look at a person's blood test and they're in the tank, and you know from the thousands of studies that vitamin D is essential for so many immune system supports and all the rest of it, I realized I had to create a product that was higher, but marketed in a sense along with the magnesium information so that people would get it to work for them. So I was doing that in the fall of 2019. And then, by the February, March of 2020, we were well into COVID. And I just sort of kept saying what I've always been saying: boost your immune system. Here's what you need. I created a Pico Zinc, and zinc is.
I have that one here. Jessica put all of these that we take.
Pico Zinc is awesome. It's in a stabilized ion form of zinc so that it dives right into your cells. And that is the kill shot for viruses. When they talk about hydroxychloroquine, most of the time they forget to mention zinc. Hydroxychloroquine doesn't kill viruses. It opens up cells to allow zinc to enter to do the kill shot. So it's zinc that a person requires. And because our Pico Zinc is picometer in size, it goes right into the cells. So you don't need hydroxychloroquine. So the other thing was Pico Silver. Now silver is so awesome, stabilizing the ion that really helps. With the silver, what I learned, I wrote a little booklet on it. Actually, I have all my booklets on a website. Can I give you the website?
Absolutely.
Okay. I have 22 free booklets on a lot of products, a lot of health conditions. And it's drcarolyndeanlive.com. And that's where my books are, and my radio show information, and the webinars I've done. We're not allowed to put anything that promotes products on our sales website. The FDA said, no, you can't tell people what you're doing. You can sell stuff, but you can't tell them it's helping them. Seriously. So the store website is rnareset.com. rnareset.com. So Pico Silver, it actually stimulates stem cell production. So it will go into your bone marrow and stimulate stem cells, which they're just the cells that then differentiate into the different tissues in your body. And that's probably why silver to this day is used on burns. When you have a burn victim head to toe, they put on silver gels and silver gauze all over them because it's stimulating new cells to replace all that burned tissue. So silver is pretty awesome. Of course, it's been sidelined because of antibiotics. You can't get a patent on it. And I mean, we all know that with COVID, the public health services, Health and Human Services, they should be talking about vitamin D, vitamin C, and omega-3 fatty acids and silver and zinc, but they're not. They will never give you the information you need to build up your own immune system against these viruses. And there are trillions of viral organisms all over. I mean, we should be friendly with them. But now, our whole society has been made to fear them. I find it just horrifying what's going on.
I'm questioning where I go and what's the dance, the needle I want to thread with this one, Carolyn. Let's go. Let's go to immune system for one more minute, and then we're going to dovetail on some other stuff, and then we'll kind of go quickly, not as much of a speed round as we did 6 years ago, but I want to get to some of the bigger challenges here. But tell me about omega-3 and C when it comes to the immune system.
Right. I think omega-3, what I did there was made it from algae. So
Thank you.
so it's, yes, it's vegan, vegetarian, but also because fish makes me burp.
Fish, you just found a way to stay alive.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And all these, when you type in omega-3 supplements, what comes up? Krill. Krill is what our whales out here eat.
I know, and
right?
that's why you're like, oh, it's so small, we'll be fine. I'm like, no.
Oh, stop it. I mean, pretty soon we're going to say, no more krill, sorry, whales. It's that serious. So I've refused to use a fish oil. And in my omega-3 algae, I put a good medicinal amount of vitamin A and vitamin E. So I get all those fat soluble things covered. What the omegas do, I think the most important thing is they help make the cell membrane. If you don't have good solid cell membranes and they're kind of friable and leaky and everything, you're done. You're gone. People who don't have enough omegas, and there's a huge population in the ADHD kids, and maybe in the autism spectrum, where they have very dry, flaky skin. So that's a skin effect of the omegas. And in the blood testing, they are very low in omegas. When they get omegas, their skin starts healing up and they feel better. Now take that to the brain.
Yeah.
If the brain neurons, if the membranes of the neurons are leaky, you're going to have problems, with the brain. There's also heart effects with the omegas. But what happens in the studies that are done with something like the omegas, they'll just focus on one thing. And they'll say, well, you probably need 3 grams of omegas to affect the heart. And we don't go there. I mean, my omegas have 1,000 milligrams, 1 gram. And what I do is balance the omegas with everything else. The heart just doesn't need omegas. It needs your magnesium. It needs some vitamin E. It needs the hydration, and it needs a whole slew of things. But when nutrition is studied and when nutrients are studied, and they just look at one thing, they look at high dosing. And then people get the idea, okay, the higher the better, without realizing it's a balance of many things that the body is asking for. And it'll either kick out what it doesn't need, or the extra stuff will just cause problems like calcium, the way it precipitates. I mean, seriously, when you think of women who are taking calcium supplements because they've been told to for their bones, and those calcium supplements land in their breasts as breast calcification, and then they're told they have DCIS, which is disseminated something or an interstitial calcium deposit, and they're told that's a pre-cancer. Instead of saying, you got a calcium deposit, we'll watch it, they say it's pre-cancer because it's not cancer.
Yeah. And
then they start chopping up breasts and just freaking women out because they're calcified, instead of realizing it's overcalcification from calcium supplements. And high dose calcium supplements, they led to the current epidemic of heart disease in women. They've out of New Zealand, a doctor did at least a half a dozen studies showing that women, just by taking these high dose, and I mean like 1,200 milligrams a day, high dose calcium supplements, are at a higher risk for heart disease. Why? Because the calcium precipitates into the arteries, causing the plaques that block up the arteries and cause angina and heart attack. So there.
Let's go from there and let's dive into a whole bunch of things. I'll try not to make this a speed round because people can go to our earlier video and catch that whole speed round. However, Let us go here. Anxiety, depression, and sleep.
Yeah, start with magnesium. Okay, what's going on? So the adrenal glands, you get into this fight and flight, they get irritable. You need magnesium, vitamin C, and sea salt to support your adrenal glands. So you should not jump at the sound of a engine backfiring. This is not normal. If you're doing that, your adrenals are hyper irritable and you're low in magnesium. Insomnia, the first cause of insomnia is magnesium deficiency. It's like your muscles can't relax enough to allow you to sink into your bed and into a deep sleep. And depression, the serotonin, which is our feel-good neurotransmitter, that is actually made mostly in our gut. So if you don't have good gut health, you don't have good serotonin, and you don't have a good mood. Serotonin requires magnesium in its creation. So it all winds around back to begin with magnesium.
Thank you. Migraines, pain, neuralgia, and then maybe separately we'll do issues for athletes, because I love that one. So migraines and pain, neuralgia.
Well, migraines and pain, neuralgia, anything with neuralgia, anything with nerves is going to be magnesium deficiency until proven otherwise. Magnesium controls the contraction and relaxation of muscles and the input and the evoked potential of nerves. So any sort of neuralgia, peripheral neuralgia, even in diabetes, migraines, people take the most horrible combinations of drugs for migraines, but many headache doctors have proven that magnesium is necessary to help prevent and treat migraine headaches. And I've had incredible results over the years with the REMAG for migraines. It does many things. It relaxes the muscles in the head and neck, the nerves. It does something to reduce small little blood clots. There's a whole list of things that I've written about in the Magnesium Miracle. So why doctors don't use more magnesium is because it's probably the laxative effect. If they were to give enough magnesium, which you can do with the REMAG because you don't get the laxative effect, they would be, I'd say, curing most migraines. But of course, as a supplement manufacturer, I can't say supplements cure anything. The FDA has told me personally that if I say I'm curing something with REMAG, for example, that I'm making REMAG into a drug, and I would have to do the $1 billion drug trial to prove it's a drug so that I could say it cures things. Because only drugs cure things. Right, Michael?
You know what I'd like it is if somebody would donate the $1 billion and you actually went through that. Wouldn't that be rockin' awesome?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're kind of sneaking around that high price tag by doing our university studies. Oh, sidebar, you'll love this. We're doing a cyclist study at a certain university now.
All right, so let's dovetail from there to issues for athletes. And I've noticed an interesting one since I got to the desert. And I think it's because I had stopped taking magnesium here in the desert because the water tasted so bad. And so now I'm starting to get tendonitis, which I never, ever get. It's like overuse injuries. And I know I work out hard, but I shouldn't be getting the overuse injuries. And I'm going, what's going on here?
Interesting. Yeah. Magnesium deficiency, Michael.
All right. Well, I've got your Remin, your Remite, your everything. We'll do it. We're going to do it, Carolyn.
Well, what I did, I mean, you're talking about your water tasting bad, but
So for
I know
everybody, we
the,
spoke about this beforehand. I'll give people
yeah,
the backstory. We're living in the
okay.
desert. Whatever is piped in, however it gets here, by the time it's here, tastes fruity. It's really bad. I have no idea why it tastes fruity. So we run it through 2 different filters, and then it still tastes really bad. And so I've been using bottled sparkling water, Pellegrino, Perrier, and Topo Chico as my water of choice, which I don't believe is that great. Although I think you mentioned Pellegrino is the best, maybe of the bunch.
It's got some minerals in it. It's mainly the European springs that have more magnesium, but you could just put your magnesium in that water. But the fruitiness makes me wonder about mold and fungus.
Ooh.
Yeah. Get some agar plates and sprinkle a few drops of the water on a mold growing agar plate and see what you get. I don't like the sound of that.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it tastes really, really. So I don't even like putting your product into just the double filtered water. It still doesn't. I'm very
Right,
intuitive and it does not feel
right,
right.
right. The other thing is, just while we're on the topic though, because these minerals are very concentrated, so they're strong mineral tasting, is in the whole COVID immune business, I made a high dose ascorbic acid powder. It's a berry powder. The
Oh, I have that
stevia,
here.
you do?
This?
Yes, it's just wonderful. Now, Michael's already said that the stevia is too strong for him. There's a whole scoop, is 2,000 milligrams. I love it, but
Yeah.
I will put it in 20 ounces of water with all my minerals, and I'll just drink that through the day. But you can start with a quarter teaspoon, and that might, well, if you're going to use the sparkling water, you can go there. But even with the sparkling water, if you don't want the mineral taste, just put it's called vitamin C reset powder.
Very good. And Jessica just gave me a note. She said, even the animal communicators we've had on the show say the kitties hate the water. So Jessica, what she is saying, and I'm saying this to you, even though we're on air here, is she said there's quite possibly mold in the water.
We've already talked about the heart. You can, I think the big thing with athletes is you sweat out your minerals.
Mm-hmm.
And people, you'll lick your skin after a run and you'll taste salt. You're also tasting magnesium. And unfortunately, because magnesium is not on the radar for your coach or your doctor, you're just going to be told to take salt tablets and not your magnesium. So I'm just saying, you really need the magnesium if you're sweating.
I used to coach a lot of marathoners, and I would have them taking your product beforehand as part of their training protocol. However, what do you recommend for people doing marathons or ultra marathoners, which isn't traditionally our audience, but there's some of them here who get muscle cramps during long-term events? Because the protocol is you take salt tablets during your run. Is there anything better and more magnesium oriented we can do?
Well, the runners that have gotten back to us, in our customer base, they've told us that they run with Remag and Remite and sea salt in their water, and they will drink it along the way. So, and you'd have to experiment with the amount. Everybody could be different, but you get your people trying it beforehand, make sure they're sipping it through the day. If you take, say 2 teaspoons at once, which is 600 milligrams, you could overwhelm yourself and cause the laxative effect. So, don't do that. You want to give the magnesium in increments so that your cells aren't overloaded.
For the general public, thank you. For the general public, is there too much Remag of your magnesium you can give, or do you, and or do you just, would be the term be tighter? Do you do a little more and a little more and a little more until you find that you can't handle anymore? If you really want to get a bunch in you, if you feel you're very deficient, or better just real slow and steady as she goes?
Yeah, low and slow for everybody. Even if you're already on another magnesium. Yes, exactly. Because, the people we attract, Michael, I mean, a lot of them are, I call it total body meltdown. They're chronic fatigue. They got every organ system is depleted. So if you go ahead and take a teaspoon your first day, you can get too revved up and you think there's something wrong because you don't know what feeling better feels like. So we tell people to start with a quarter teaspoon. Yeah. We have had a handful of people who are so total body melted down that they have to start with 10 drops.
Wow.
Each drop of our Remag has 2.5 milligrams. Mm-hmm. And even on 10 drops, which is 25 milligrams, people start feeling better, as their cells start to wake up. It's amazing. So then you go up and up. When I first started my Remag, I had been taking other liquid magnesium products, but I still had my heart palpitations. I worked up to 4 teaspoons a day, which is 1,200 milligrams, yeah, which is a huge amount, and I'm not that big a person. And it took me about a year and a half where I could skip a day, yeah, and not get my heart palpitations back. That was my criteria. But I kept on with the 4 teaspoons, and then I started to get a little bit of laxative effect. And I said, oh, okay, I'm saturated. So it took me a year and a half to get there. Now I only take a teaspoon a day, and I stay at a beautiful plateau. And people will say, oh, well, you told me if I had the laxative effect, I was saturated, and they're in their first month. It's no, you're not taking it right. You haven't started slowly enough. So it's a real education, Michael. I mean, I have a dozen customer service people on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and phones and email who educate people. But it's, we may have someone calling a few times, but then they're good. And then the next person comes along. Because as people learn to take care of their bodies and learn what the formulas do, they're just so happy. It puts people back into control of their own health.
Woohoo! All right, next one, which is kind of a little bit near and dear, although I wish it wasn't. I boo-booed my head a couple months ago. I got a very, very mild concussion. And so let's talk about CNS, stroke, head injury, and brain surgery. Right.
Well, what happens when you get a head injury, whether it's a burst blood vessel or car accident or whatever Jessica did to you, then it's going to be swelling in the brain tissue. Mm-hmm. And that releases certain inflammatory markers. And what magnesium does is it decreases the inflammation. If you can start taking a lot of magnesium right after head injury, you decrease all that inflammation in the brain. And in terms of the blood clotting, I mean, what we're looking at, blood clot in the brain, what we're often looking at there is the blood vessels are a bit friable, and we need to tighten up the blood vessels with collagen factors, which means vitamin C. And it's not the ascorbic acid vitamin C, it's a vitamin C complex. That's my whole C reset product, which is a food-based vitamin C.
There, I'll put it back up. I'm like scanning. I'm like, is that? Oh, wait. We got the vitamin C reset, and then you've got the whole C reset.
Yeah. So because high dose ascorbic acid, which is the berry powder, that's the one that the orthomolecular people, Linus Pauling promotes the vitamin C. And I mean, if you can do intravenous vitamin C for for an injury or for a viral infection or for pneumonia, you can have very good results with it. And it's ascorbic acid. And the whole C reset is food-based. So it has a complex of 8 different types of vitamin C ascorbates.
That one.
So it's a whole different world. It's like taking a lot of fruit without the sugar.
Cool.
Because you know what? Sugar competes with vitamin C. Sugar and vitamin C are transported on insulin. Mm-hmm. So if you've got someone who has high levels of sugar, you eat a lot of sugar, then your insulin is going to drag the sugar into the cells and bump out the vitamin C. So vitamin C is actually an antidote to sugar. We used to have it when our foster kids were young, and we'd have the big parties. We'd have a table with all kinds of junk food and a big vitamin C bottle beside it as the antidote.
Next, we have cholesterol and hypertension.
Oh my gosh, yeah, cholesterol. Somebody has to be the villain. And the villain in heart disease became cholesterol years ago. And it was some study that really was fake. A couple of scientists, they fed rabbits. So they fed them rancid cholesterol.
Oh, poor things.
And then said, well, they developed these cholesterol plaques. So it was bad. It was a very bad study. And over the years, the margarine marketers sold margarine because cholesterol's bad, butter's bad. It was horrible. You see, right at that time, and it was like 40 or 50 years ago, they were finding out that sugar is bad for the heart. Mm-hmm. So the sugar industry got together with the fat industry or the cholesterol people and decided that they demonize cholesterol and ignore sugar. So they ruined our butter intake and made us take these trans fat margarines, which is horrible for our hearts and the rest of our bodies, and they ignored sugar. And sugar is the real problem in heart disease. So cholesterol is not bad, and even to this minute, I get customers who'll say, my cholesterol is 220 and my doctor wants it to be 150. They want me to take a statin drug. When I was in med school in the mid 70s, the average, not the normal, but the average cholesterol was 250 and heart disease was not such a big deal. And now they say it has to be 150. And there's a whole other world, like there's a Dr. Malcolm Kendrick. He's a Scottish medical doctor, great sense of humor. He's written a book called The Great Cholesterol Con. And he's just he's a basic allopathic doctor. He's not talking about magnesium or anything natural. And he says that we've been conned into thinking cholesterol is the bad guy. Now, over to magnesium. Magnesium is actually a natural statin. It works on the same pathway that statins kill. And instead of killing this enzyme pathway, magnesium balances it. You need more cholesterol? Okay, we'll let that happen. You don't need any more cholesterol? Okay, we'll dial it down. And statins, they just, they cause so many side effects. Maybe they smash down your cholesterol in the blood test, but they cause so many side effects that the net fatality rates there's no change. People don't live longer on statins. And yet they just keep on pushing them. And if one doesn't work, they'll give you two. If two doesn't work, they'll give you three. So that's cholesterol. What was the other thing?
Hypertension. And what you're really talking about here is the innate intelligence of life. We came surrounded by everything that was meant to balance us and to heal us, and within us, the innate balance and intelligence of the system when we don't tinker with it.
Exactly. And that's what I say. God and nature, they laid it all out, and we just mess it up all the time.
Thank you. And that actually brings up another aside here as we're getting toward the end of this list, and then we're going to let you go and can't thank you enough. But you mentioned before we went on air again about muscles and movement.
Right. Well, we covered that a tiny bit with the way bone will be structured and remodeled is with the muscles pulling on it in the right way. And that gets back to, sort of athletics and exercise and your posture and, aligning your body, because, if you're weak on one side, bent over, is that what's causing people to have a scoliosis as the calcium builds up too much on one side? But, we have to remember, if we're doing exercise, to do it properly. Don't overdo it. Don't be a weekend warrior. All the things that Michael tells you about all the time, I'm sure. Plaque is kind of disingenuous, because the cholesterol is often forming there to sort of patch up or an weakness in the blood vessel, which may be happening because of magnesium. That's got to do with the way your muscles metabolize sugars. You can actually control diabetes by exercising, because the muscles will accept the sugars and burn it off. That is so simple. And when your doctor says, yeah, you should get a little bit of exercise, let's give it a little more, give it a few more words there. Like, these muscles are going to help you balance your blood sugar. They'll help you keep your posture and your balance and your energy. They do so much. I even say to people sometimes on my radio show, just practice standing on one foot, for Pete's sakes. Do not succumb to leaning against the door jamb to put your socks on or put your underwear on. Stand on one foot, and you really have to keep on. How many people have you heard say to you, my next house, I'm going to make it one level. So, as I get older, I don't have to climb the stairs.
I consider that a crime. We've had Dr. Michael Merzenich, he is the father of brain plasticity. And he would say going to a smooth house or taking the crack out of the sidewalk is a crime. He would go, nothing could be further from the truth. We need that challenge for balance.
Exactly. So yeah, muscles are ultimately important, and they keep us healthy.
Thank you. And last note I'm going to say on that, then let's dive from there to blood sugar challenges. Is there something that I prescribe for people called toothbrush exercises? Link the activity of going onto one foot and tightening your core, for instance, to brushing your teeth, and then switching hands even and going to the other foot, and you start working your coordination, you work your core, and you keep yourself from falling, all while you were just brushing your teeth.
Right.
So let's go on from there, since we're talking about blood sugar challenges. Obesity, Syndrome X, diabetes.
Right. Okay. What's the treatment? Stop eating sugar. Boom. That's it. Ooh. Seriously. Yeah. And it's a shame. And, it's hard for people to reconcile, because we do associate sugar with pleasure and yumminess and all the rest of it. And, how many vegan, vegetarian books do you pick up, and they start with telling you how much fruit and fruit desserts and, sugary things you can eat on a vegetarian diet. I remember years ago, and I wish I could find it, I think Dr. Mercola wrote that when he moved to Hawaii and started eating a ton of fruit for his breakfast and sort of a food combining diet, his triglycerides went sky high. Your triglycerides are related to the fructose and sucrose sugars that you eat, period. And that actually leads to non-alcoholic fatty liver, of which we have an epidemic. And right now, I mean, I was doing the keto diet for a while, and I'm still kind of addicted to heavy whipping cream and maybe a quarter cup, half cup of frozen fruit. So I'll cut up my strawberries, the frozen blueberries, they're okay on their own. Cut up or break up frozen raspberries. What else? Frozen cherries. And smush that with heavy whipping cream and some cacao. And it's an awesome dessert. And I think it's a low glycemic dessert too. So, I mean, that's what you look for, and try to make it a small amount. But when we look at people who think, oh yeah, I'm in my pre-diabetic space, or I have my diabetes, they almost think, especially if they have a family history, that they're bound to get diabetes. And maybe they think they'll stick with that because they want to keep eating sugar.
Yeah.
And they'll take their metformin, which is turning out to have a lot of side effects. Metformin is an oral anti-glycemic drug. And they'll think that they can keep eating sugar. They'll take their insulin and balance out their sugar intake. And doctors don't disabuse them of that notion. The doctor that I know personally up in Toronto, Dr. Jason Fung, F-U-N-G, he's written a book, oh, good grief. Maybe it's called The Diabetes Code. Mm-hmm. He's written a number of books, The Obesity Code and then Diabetes Code. He's a nephrologist. So he just got tired of putting patients on dialysis for the kidney disease they got from their diabetes. And so he went keto, and he just decided that you just have to stay away from sugar in order to control your diabetes.
Thank you.
So that's that.
Jessica's given me the red warning sign that we get to wrap this up. So I'm going to go real quickly over a few of these. Please bear with me. But let's see if we can keep the answers really, really tight on these. PMS, dysmenorrhea, menopause, PCOS, infertility, pregnancy, preeclampsia, cerebral palsy, linking them all together.
Start with magnesium. They are seriously all related to magnesium deficiency. Either the blood sugar with PCOS, because magnesium is necessary to help your insulin work properly. In PCO, polycystic ovarian syndrome, it's related to hormone imbalance, and magnesium helps there. But also, it is related to weight gain, estrogen dominance. So you might be looking at some herbal intervention for PCOS. With the eclampsia, preeclampsia, definitely magnesium deficiency. It's got in pregnancy, the high blood pressure, the even seizures, to the point of seizures from the body tightening up from magnesium deficiency. The fetus, steals magnesium. What do they do when they have an eclamptic mother during labor? They put up an intravenous drip of magnesium. And PMS, I mean, that's related to some toxicity before the period. If you cut back on meat intake and take more magnesium and vitamin B6, you can usually control your PMS symptoms.
Thank you.
So there.
Real quickly, we covered kind of osteoporosis, but arthritis, kidney stones, kidney disease.
Well, most kidney stones are calcium oxalates, so they focus on the oxalates, but they don't tell people, they tell people maybe to cut back on calcium, but they never tell them to take magnesium, which will help dissolve the calcium. It seriously will. And with arthritis, I mean, arthritis is calcification that builds up in the joints. So what we do here is we'll have people put our Remag lotion on their joint areas as well as take it by mouth. And that has proven very, very beneficial.
And then let's transition to aging, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia.
Right. The aging, we talked about the telomeres and the calcification. So that's your magnesium. Parkinson's, it's a little different. I mean, with Parkinson's, it's the substantia nigra getting out of balance with the dopamines. And it can be related to heavy metals in the brain. And certainly magnesium is a detoxifier. I have seen people definitely with Alzheimer's improving because the magnesium detoxifies the brain. Parkinson's is a little tougher. If you can catch Parkinson's and MS earlier than later, you're much better off. But we've even seen people with Huntington's chorea who go on our protocols, and it stabilizes. The doctors are amazed that they're not progressing. So the body wants the building blocks. It has the blueprint of perfection. And you give it the right building blocks that are properly absorbed. You can write a list and say, yeah, all these things are going to help. If they're not absorbed, they're not going to help. So what I've been blessed and being gifted with is these products that are so well absorbed that the body uses them, you recognize that they're working, and you just keep getting better and better. I mean, I'm in my 7th decade. I'm really getting along there, and I certainly don't feel it. I feel better now. I feel better now than I did in my 40s, because in my 40s I was magnesium deficient.
So on that note, where can people go to find out more, Carolyn, and to get your wonderful products?
Thank you. RNAreset.com is the store. And for all the free information, it's at drcarolyndeanlive.com.
Fantastic. And any last words of wisdom you want to share with people? I think you've covered the whole range. I want everybody to go out and get your book. And more importantly, I want everybody to get on magnesium like yesterday.
Right. I guess we didn't cover kind of the conflict basis of disease. I think the body tries to solve whatever we're going through that our minds kind of reject in terms of, you have an emotional conflict, someone's bugging you, there's anger, even what's going on out in society, you're developing an emotion toward it and you can't pull away from it. That emotion is going to go into your body to try to solve it. If someone or something is a pain in your neck, you're going to get a pain in your neck. If you can't stomach something, you're going to get a pain in your stomach, and on and on and on. So whatever a person is going through, look for the conflict and just recognize it. It's nothing to do with psychiatry or taking drugs. It's just the body is trying to cope and you're not giving it that space. It's like you're keeping a negative thought in your mind, and the body says, okay, I'm going to dump it into your body. I'm not going to let it stay in there. You see what I mean? It's a modality called total biology, or German new medicine. And I might have mentioned it before in the past, but it's very effective to be able to talk things out with a friend or even, a counselor, so that it doesn't get stuck in your mind and then drop into your body.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I could keep going and going and going. We're going to call it good here. This has been phenomenal, Carolyn. I am so grateful to have you on the show. Huge, huge hugs and kisses and aloha and mahalo. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you to Jessica and your rooster as well. Aloha.
Woohoo! So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the Magnesium Miracle, and begin turning your total body health around today and shine bright. Woohoo! I had did I have an incredible time with Dr. Carolyn Dean. And so did Ruru too. We have used magnesium ever since Jessica was sick with mold toxicity poisoning. I'm convinced it helped her come back. And so I cannot recommend it enough. To check out more amazing interviews, click here, subscribe below, click on that bell icon to be notified of upcoming shows, YouTube premieres, live events every Sunday night with me. Above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! Comments, subscribe, big thumbs up if you like this. Love you guys so much.